So, I would like to know about you first because you are a materials engineer, right?
So,
And
graduating.
yeah,
Yep.
okay. So you are a materials engineer. You worked in defense aerospace as well,
Yep. On
right?
my placement.
Yeah, and then you are into AI governance and reliability. How this journey is going right now for you?
Um, so I'm finishing off my master's in materials engineering at Loughborough. I have a few more things to do and then I should be done. I have kind of got into reliability and I guess more how systems are in science and engineering, but especially within the research and modeling sphere, are kind of not, are kind of viewed through this perfect modeling or like perfect environment lens where there's a lot of discounting of a lot of, I guess, real life factors that happen. And I think this kind of became clear to me more through like my personal experience with over the last few years with my health. Um, so one of the things I also post about it is kind of that side of it more from, I guess, a lack of morals because my conditions are fibromyalgia, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, chronic fatigue syndrome, and then dysautonomia, which is essentially what that is a lot of the things inside of my body overreact. And it's an invisible condition. So on the outside, I can look very functioning, but I know that internally there's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of things that I will have to do throughout my daily life to get to those small points where I look like I'm actually doing all right, or I have to perform at the same level with, for example, my degree, or at the back end of my placement. So that kind of idea of the what you're seeing not necessarily being what's happening was almost like that connection was made with materials because of my experience as basically doing a full materials assessment on these aerospace parts, things like primarily metallurgy, but going through that process, doing a lot of microscopy and a lot of different testing, get to see how these things are internally, like what the structure is going on, and going through that kind of scaling up to how they're going to work in the real life, and then using I found using AI was my ability allowed me to produce more. But the thing with AI is that you will get that output, for example, with an LLM like ChatGPT, and you may not know what's going on internally to get that output. And if you look at a lot of the ways LLMs are currently, or just AI in general, are currently viewed, it's a very performance first kind of metric. Whereas as an engineer, what I'm looking for is the robustness of being able to actually work in the field, but also if it breaks, which everything will at the end of the day, how can we engineer it to break in an honest way, an open way, so that it's not hidden. And taking that mindset allowed me to go into AI and coding and software building, where I try and bring out all of that honesty. I try and let it break on purpose because that in of itself is information. So my whole philosophy is trying to basically say, hey, if my LLM or my AI is going to do something, say something, then I I'm happy if it what it's saying is I don't know, or I'm not fully sure about the full credibility of something, or being able to fail rather than hallucinating and things like that.
Okay. So, was there any specific moment in your life that you ventured to this kind of field? Like, you did materials engineering, and then you ventured in AI and reliability thing. That was there any moment in your life where you felt like I have to delve in here?
Um,
Um,
so to be honest, it was kind of recent, this transition. So before even the university year, which starts in September, I kind of just used AI as a tool. Didn't really think about it in terms of like how I used it because I did it for what made sense to me. And then as I had to go kind of through first almost learning and diagnosing my conditions and how they interact and all of that stuff, because I have neurodivergency and things like that as well. So it was quite a lot of different things. My memory and energy with my conditions started to dissipate, and my ability to, I guess, like really focus and hard like delve into something. So I kind of bring all of the system. I kind of stay in my kind of systems, which is why I'm comfortable. And then over time, I realized that I needed to get this process of what I've been doing down because I realized it was performing things like writing very long documentation for the NHS and things like that, and also helping me with my degree in terms of not doing the thinking for me, but translating my into like translating what I want into, I guess, the structures that they want. Because I have my own thoughts about academia as well, but
yeah,
that
I
that transition there into then realizing, sorry, that the that I could actually use that in terms of the reliability in terms of AI, that this is actually a field that needs to be addressed. That what I've kind of been doing have been addressing some of those questions. And then eventually over the last 3 months I've been doing a lot of software building. Not to do with it, a lot of the software doesn't actually use AI or things like that. It's kind of that native built engineering stuff, but there's also a lot that kind of is controlling that way that it approaches things. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, I understand totally. But because sometimes what happens is that we have the thought, but we are unable to execute it. And
Mm,
sometimes AI helps to do that, right?
exactly.
So I was reading your article and you mentioned something about drift, right?
Mm,
And the idea that a system can look completely fine on paper while it's actually losing its ability to recover
mm,
um, from problems. So,
exactly.
can you just uh, unpack the things? Like, how can you explain it to people?
So I mean, if we look at something like a bridge, right? A bridge doesn't suddenly become unsafe overnight, you know? It will have years of wear and tear that you don't see underneath before something eventually catastrophically will give out. The same thing happens with a company. A company wouldn't collapse overnight. A relationship doesn't fail overnight, you know? That visible failure is usually the final stage of a much longer process. So drift is kind of the way I see that gradual loss of loss of like the recovery capacity, the ability to maintain, to persist.
Yeah.
before that obvious failure actually appears. Because I think when we look at monitoring as like when even as people, but also engineers can be think can be can happen as a problem. Companies will do it. They focus on the outputs. They focus on that visible, what they can initially see. Um, that is also my experience with, for example, healthcare and the medical stuff, my own personal thing. So kind of realizing that connection, it's almost my idea is more to monitor the system's ability to recover. And when it comes to AI systems, you can have a model, for example, ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever you're talking to, that's still producing those good answers, while the confidence, the evidence, or the governance behind it is quietly degrading.
So yeah, I mean, I there is the mention of a furnace example in your article, I guess, and I really liked that because you said that it actually reaches a right temperature, but the recovery part is something which we have to be considerate about, right, later on.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so I mean, this can be related in law also because we have a term called technically compliant. So, a
Mm.
contract or a company can be technically compliant while everyone knows that the real structure is being held together by the goodwill and the exceptions. So, I guess one of the examples can be that also.
Hmm.
So, like, how many different AI tools do you use, and how do you, I mean, use it? Like, how do you,
Um,
as a engineer, if I ask?
so I guess the main thing that I used personally just was ChatGPT because it was the most easy. And I kind of ended up accidentally building an ontological architecture around it. So a written architecture that includes things like memory and or a different way to think that it could kind of project memory to give it a bit longer lasting. That includes the ability to say that it won't know or also pull me back. That's kind of what I use it for because I know that I'm very fast. I will kind of skip steps. So I've kind of got my kind of main AI tool to almost be like, hey, we need to pull it back. We need to actually get the evidence for this. We need to make sure that these claims aren't, you know, are falsifiable. We need to, that falsifiability is a big thing. The ability to actually prove that it's wrong or right or like doesn't hold or holds. I think if you can't do that, then it doesn't really hold that as much use, if that makes sense. But I then kind of used what I do a lot is when I'm building these things, when I feel like I have something that is so there's a few things that I do here. I email myself if I'm discussion notes. So I'll just as I'm going through these discussions about certain topics, certain things, I'll kind of copy, paste them, and then I'll have these big batches that I can always refer to. I tend to give stuff names where I can, just so that it's memorable for both me and the AI, because then it can almost link the the whole field to that name rather than like having to hold everything. I also use different models, so Gemini or Copilot, to when I feel like I have a like visual or like public-ish or something doesn't necessarily have to be public, but a stable artifact that's I've frozen that I will use those other models to look through it through a lens that isn't tainted by the fact that I'm working in this one model. Because no matter what you do to like almost control that, yeah, I'll try my best. Like the fact that you can get other models to peer review your work quickly and understand where it's not hitting from, I guess, these kind of different perspectives. It gives you a lot of insight on those pieces of work, on where you can actually improve it or where it doesn't necessarily hold up, or like, and telling them to attack the work, if that makes sense. And also where what different audiences will react to it, and using those kind of like multiple perspectives that you kind of generate quickly, you can then almost see the kind of failure points in your work in that as a piece of information that you can then use to improve it. The other thing I think is really that I do is those when I'll compress a lot. So I have these big expansive things, and then I try and get it down to a compressed state, because then when I have this compressed like state, I can then freeze it there, and I can leave it there for a late down the line, and I can do other work that I'm working on. Or I can use that to basically use it for different parts of different things. A lot of my stuff is cross domains, and I try and it connects through the same on like state grammar almost. But the final thing is that I use Codex, which is the agent coding,
Yeah.
purely as a coding bot. So I will give it these big files or packs that basically will tell it what to do in the like what process of the implementation that I want it to do. And then I've made all of my software have evidence and audits almost implemented, to so that you can always do diagnostic look throughs using that. And I've made it almost so that I can not only go through Codex, but now I've introduced a governance operating system for different models, basically using one architecture to host different different like Quens or Olama or Codex, but that uses a relay system because it's not directly native. But things like that to basically find what these different models are best suited towards, and then promote one to try and solve a problem. For example, if you want to use something that's low compute, you can use a quicker model, but then if it can't do the task, then it will upgrade to the next model to give it the same initial kind of bounded task, to see where it can almost see if you can supersede it. That's the I'm working towards evidencing that further, but there's been some good progress with that. And then the final thing that's really in I think is quite useful with that process is it kind of, I think in engineering I kind of look at a rule of three, where if you see three things happening, like three kind of convergences, um, you know, it both good or bad. Like if you see something failing three times in a similar way, then maybe you actually need to look at the whole thing again. If you see something succeeding three times, okay, or coming to the same point in three directions. So if you give three models the same bounded task and they can't kind of come up with the same solution, that gives you more confidence in that product, because you've separated them and they've all converged on it without having the same thinking like principles. But behind each model. Um, and those are the things that I'm doing with AI at the moment. So I
I
guess quite
mean, you are actually exploring it thoroughly. I mean, the
yeah.
way you have explained it's so commendable. And I mean, I
Thank you.
also, whenever I use, because I'm a lawyer, so I do
Mm,
not use it as the way you are using it, obviously. But I was just searching about a case and I run through all the AI models. And I got different answers for a particular case. It was a very old case. So I understood that the mechanism, like it has some drawbacks also. What are the drawbacks that you feel like are very prevalent in the way you use it?
Um, so the in terms of the way I use it, um, I think the biggest drawbacks that I find is that language. So a lot of my work, every article I've written, it does. I don't write it. I don't type it all. I have these big discussions that kind of compress into the article, and I've given it a lot of basically direction on cadence. On I think I treat it like a composition, like orchestral, because I think those same crescendos and the same like rhythmic patterns as well as the actual words you use are both important. So it's allowed me to basically really quickly go create these articles as you've seen, without losing, I think, me in them. The problem that I find the most is that I lose the language in it, where it will everything is kind of, because I'm working through these names and things like that. It almost it becomes that echo chamber where you can't see that you're overcomplicating it, or you're using your language too much that people don't know. Like they won't know what certain things are that I know within my system, or they won't. There's certain words that I use like perturbations that I know isn't a like the most common word. So I think the main I've tried not to sound like arrogant. I find that like I've made a system that's quite robust and
Mhm.
covers for quite a lot of the failures and drawbacks that modern AI systems tend to have. The way memory is done, I've implemented a whole new memory layer that, but basically the human has interaction in how it promotes, how it recovers memory, it being a first class thing. Hallucinations have dropped massively. It
Yeah,
because I of that kind of implementation that I've given it. I've I think using other models has helped take away a lot of the drawbacks. Like models that aren't connected to it at all. In terms of like the Geminis and the co-pilots, because I will always get that other perspective. But I think the biggest one that I probably have is that I stay internal. It like inside my system too much. Like I need to publish more, but I'm very, I guess, I know how academia and stuff is, but it's a lot of nonsense, and I don't like writing like that. So it's one of those where I've been a bit hesitant. This is kind of why I've started on Substack, because I find I can communicate things a lot easier through the kind of medium that Substack allows.
yeah, I
Um,
believe so.
I
I mean,
appreciate.
yeah, Substack was something which I discovered recently, and I was very
Yeah.
fascinated by the way it works. It was not something like any social media, and yeah, I truly appreciate that.
Mhm.
So it's a very interesting journey of yours, I must really say. And you are exploring in a very different way.
Yeah.
And let's go to the next thing. I was just reading your article, related to your article only. So you said something like there is we don't have a shortage of predictions. We have shortage of justified confidence, right?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
So
Or
I think that we've, for the last 20 years, just in modeling AI, not necessarily, but also now with AI, the focus has always been on the highest output, the highest number. Um, I think that with the way that that's gone, we've got to the point where we can always get things like that are high in terms of the final output and the final number that is given. With you have things like R squared and RMSE for data models, but LLMs have become so knowledgeable and so expansive in terms of their capabilities. I don't think that the next steps are trying to supersede that. I think the next steps are trying to get that to work or for you and continuously. And like we can, I've worked on this software that runs through different levels of noise and different types of noise through variables. And it's in this case it was materials properties, and it is consistently found that the predictors that that these models relying on, the highest scoring ones when subjected to these noises to are the ones that will fall off in terms of prediction accuracy the most, and some of the ones below it that are holding are the ones that I believe are more honest or more culpable in giving us more more honest, more precise results rather than just being accurate. You know, the accuracy versus
yeah,
precision. Archery board. Have you ever seen where it's like accuracy will be like close, but scattered around
yeah.
it, and then precise. So I think it's we need to almost work on that precision now in terms of just that that capability of doing it repeatedly through different, because it's if you think about archery again, it's it's not about how accurate you can be when indoors, you know, in like the most perfect conditions. It's about how in the competition it's going to be outdoors, there's going to be wind, there's going to be noise, there's going to be crowds, and the ones that rise to the top are the ones that can do that in those conditions, you know. So that's kind of how I see it now.
Okay. I mean, like, can you just brief it in one sentence if you want to explain this again? Like in one sentence, how you will say that? What are the drawback? One drawback which you feel is uh, very, highly probable right now in using AI. The way you explained it is very intensive, and if you have to tell it to general audience, like who are from non-technical background, if we say,
Hmm.
what is the one thing that why you I mean one drawback that you feel is overpowering?
um I think just because something is right once or two things get the same thing right doesn't mean one has got it right because it's got loads of repeated results. You know, it's imagine a doctor and just some random person, and they see someone that has broken their leg, and the guy goes, he's broke his leg, but the doctor also goes, he broke his leg. Does that mean the guy is as knowledgeable about the whole thing as the
Yeah,
doctor? And I think the problem with the AI is that it's relying on the result and it's not looking at the context as much.
absolutely. Yeah. I
Hopefully that
mean,
was.
no, it works, totally works. And I think it's trying and testing we have to do,
Mhm.
and a lot
Gaining
of time.
confidence.
Yeah. And the hallucination problems that occurs in AI is like one of the most prominent problem which we face as a lawyer, because
Hmm.
even though we have all the answers before us, but
Hmm.
they are not correct.
Hmm.
The sources, when we look at the sources, they are not right.
Yeah.
And the way you explain is very nice, I think that. So you are working on a project, right? Systemica Atlas.
Yes.
Yeah. What is it?
Um, so I mean, the atlas itself is just a mapping layer. It's something that you can interact with and understand the whole system at the whole, or at least that's what it's trying to be and going towards being. The actual the project itself is basically using, I guess, the kind of mindset that I've been talking about and have repeatedly used in different circumstances to create different modules that all can work together, that are all governed with each other under the same kind of rule set. Everything going through governance and ethics before it touches any of it. And the goal is to, well, first, personally, it would be to consult with people and see if I can help them make messy things more, less messy and less complex, and show them where not only organize the project or whatever, but give them a map that they can look at that will show them where their weaknesses are, where their strengths are, what's currently evidenceable, what's currently claimable, and where they can go next. And the goal is to kind of make honest automation efficient, because honest automation right now is a very long and tedious process, I think. If you really want, because it goes through like it would, because there's so much lack of trust in these systems, rightfully so. There is a lot of processes that will have to go in, so it doesn't really become true automation. And for me, it's about giving a system that optimizes for justified answers, not just answers in general. And
Yeah.
that will be for
Yeah.
engineering, that will be for any kind of general document stuff, or like any kind of projects really. But the primary focus is with this one software called Governor Variance Logic, and then that is the one that I was talking about that kind of injects the noise. And the idea is to do that to these kind of, firstly, for the different materials property ladder, because I believe there is a causal chain hierarchy. By that I mean, right now we kind of look at things like bulk density, or like shear or strain, so fatigue, how it breaks, whatever it may be, all in a line. The same probably you can kind of see with AI. And I kind of the way I think about it, it kind of the electronic structure besets the geometric structure, which besets the mechanical properties. So the goal is to kind of reduce the way models have to think about it, have to model these all of these properties by basically, rather than modeling the entire chain, it was modeling the electronic properties and then the transformations that go across them,
Okay, so
make it more
basically
efficient.
everything in one place, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's the
you
final goal.
want, yeah, okay, that's very. I mean, from point of your point of view, it seems very like structured, but people would like to, know about it more. I think it. I hope it becomes more um,
Thank
big
you.
for
I'm working
you.
on it.
Yeah. So you have described yourself, your work, your process as a mess, structure, evidence, decision, right? Like paradox of mess and structure as well.
Hmm.
So can you walk through a real example in life? How you characterize it mess as well as structure, but also including decision and evidence.
So a lot of my work is done on my phone. Um,
Okay.
I will go somewhere, go sit down, and I'll just listen to some music, and I'll kind of just discuss things, whatever's on my mind, or whatever is the thing that I'm doing right now. For a while, it was just whatever was on my mind, and I went. A lot of it is me going through this process of just kind of conversationally walking through it, but at a deep systems level. But for me, like, I'll make jokes to myself, or like I'll speak in my, I guess, my most comfortable, like, um dialect, which would be like London slang and stuff. So it's very much like a really big, almost ballooning out of things, to then come in once I've made a decision, to compress that into something that is then tangible enough to be evidenced, tangible enough to be, is structured, like can be looked at and reviewed. So it's this massive, like, messy expansion. In a lot of the times I will talk about like a lot of random stuff. I go on a lot of side tangents. I have ADHD, so it's part of the process. But then the in the end point, it's I'm using the AI to hold these threads together, to then bring it, bring it all back in where I need it to. Like, I'm trying to give an example, but my memory is like.
It's okay. It's fine. I mean, I've got it. Like, uh, what I have understood is like there is a mess for you.
Mhm.
Well, while you are doing something leisure kind of, and then
Yeah,
it transforms into a structure, if I'm
yeah.
not wrong, and then right,
Eventually.
you eventually it transform in a structure. Because I have read your articles, I have read 3 articles of yours,
Thank you.
and I find that because because the way you have used examples, like I guess you have used an example in one of the articles, the cargo one, I
Hmm.
guess, and then you the furnace ones. I So it's not like normal thinking, which we are, you know we write an article where we structure it in a way, but you have made it with an example. You have started with an example, and then you have executed in a sub very mathematical way, which I didn't understand. Being
Yeah.
honest, I'm law from a
No.
law background. Anyway, Yeah. So
I
you
try to give
said
some
that
layers.
yeah, uh, that would be good. I think it will be very good for most of the audience, like, I mean, many people. So you talked about responsible automation and your goal of making honest automation
Hmm.
efficient.
Hmm.
I mean, what is it? I mean, um, how can we understand this responsible automation
Um,
look like to you?
I mean, when we think about like automating something, like, uh, well, even when we think about people using AI to basically remove themselves from the thinking, um, they kind of be like, just look at a university where they'll give the case brief to the person, to the AI, and be like, write it in like this style, and then they'll try and get away with that. But there's no, there isn't that user direction. You're not the captain of your own vessel, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and the goal is to basically allow for a process where you don't have to slog away for ages, you know, doing all of the groundwork, the like, not the groundwork, the laborious stuff, the really frustrating things for a lot of people, where it's this massive expanse where you have to always check back with like the writing. You have, for me, it's almost about being able to see something and then work from it. Whereas like, you'll kind, a lot of people will like build it out and then they'll go through these loads and loads of processes, but that will take so much time.
Mhm.
Whereas if you can make that process of the iterations something that
Mhm.
you're involved with, but then because you're directing it, because you have the agency at the end of the day, making the process, the because people will try and cheat it, making it so that the actual automation doesn't allow you to not have the agency in it. I think that's the best way to describe it. Like,
Yeah, I yeah, it's interesting. I mean, um, automation is something responsible automation and honest automation, right? So responsibility is something else, but being honest in your work, I mean, in the way AI is performing
mhm,
with so many things, is what is right now needed. And I really appreciate that, the way you explain it. And also I want to ask, I mean, not ask, yeah, we can say that you said predictive accuracy is becoming a commodity, right?
mhm,
And judgment is becoming a valuable thing.
mhm.
Yeah. So how can you explain it? Like, what, from an engineer's point of view, how can you describe in a simple manner?
um in terms of predictive accuracy becoming a commodity, uh a, a materials engineering student can make a model go have a high score of like between zero, if it's 0 to 1 it can be like a 0.92 or something. And that's someone who doesn't know how to code really. They're using uh, these you're using a lot of plugins that have basically made it so that you can get a model that is predicting well. And
Yes.
it's become so easy and so that you, like, people at home, if they wanted to spend like a bit of time learning how to like do a like a um something like a linear regression. You may not know what that is, but just something like that, where you're looking at these predictive scores, it wouldn't be too like challenging anymore to make the numbers look good. Um,
Yeah.
what was the second part that you brought up? Sorry, it's slipped my mind a bit. It was
It's
predictive
okay.
accuracy and
Judgment is becoming the
judgment.
valuable thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is where I talk about how you could see you want to be able to see a product, see something, and then work from it. And I think that that step, because with AI right now, we can write loads of stuff really quickly. We can create loads of things really quickly. I think the ability to create something practically, the steps that it would take someone to go from brain to something visual has reduced
Mhm.
massively. And I think what that then changes is not necessarily the skill of being able to write loads of the like write documents, or it's about how your judgment as a person is going through these processes and actually being involved. And I think you're then it's a lot it is that idea of like I come back to agency, where I think that the mistake that we're losing is that we're trying to give agency to AI, and
Yeah.
that's not I don't think that's the right call necessarily. I think
Yes.
agency within a bounded space is what we need AI to do. We need to give it a little like pen, and then it can do what it wants, but it needs to stay in the fences that we built.
Yeah. I mean, there should be a boundary, right?
Exactly.
Because, yeah, um, we have like we are using it very frequently, and what matters right now is that the judgment, what we are saying, that the way we are understanding the whole model, whatever the output is there, we have to be prudent enough to understand it well.
Mm.
It's not like so many things which we are doing so frequently, right?
Mm.
We for small things only we use AI models,
Exactly.
and then we okay, we copy paste. Many of us do that, and then we are okay, fine, we have got the answer. And what requires is that the human mind is at the pinnacle, and we have to use that human mind in a
Exactly.
way that whatever output is there is well judged. So yeah, that's very important.
Yep. I agree
What does the
completely.
what yeah, what does the future for you look like in 5 years in your work?
Um, Hopefully start building it by myself. And like I want to make this something that is used practically by engineering organizations or further than. Um, I think, especially with because I've got a public publication technical workflow, so I think the whole idea is to hopefully in 5 years have the full platform available and have the different modules for the different areas that it can be useful for people to have that way of designing something in a bounded space a bit easier, I guess, and user friendly, and stop overly having as much hallucinations and stuff. So if that becomes something that becomes, I guess, used widely, then I also want to keep producing articles on different things and publishing as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, um, you have some personal problems in your life as well, like health related issues.
Yeah.
So I think AI is doing a great role in your life, like
Mhm.
assisting you in many aspects, right?
100%.
So yeah, so I think it's not only about that you are a engineer, but also from a person who is dealing with such issues, are also telling how they're actually going through all this and how they are using AI effectively. So, anything which you would like to add in this whole conversation at the end, because we are going to wrap it now, and
Oh no,
it was an interesting conversation.
it was. I appreciate you having me on. This is my first time doing anything like this, so I'm just starting
Yeah,
out.
I mean, you are also the first time I have never I have dealt with Indian audience. I mean, Indian guests, but you are the first one from outside India. So I am very happy to be like you are there. Thank you for
I
joining here.
appreciate it. No, thank you. All right, brilliant. I do actually have a delivery coming, so it's perfect timing.
Okay. So anything which you would like to add in the end for all the viewers,
Um,
related to AI or unrelated to it, whatever it is from your part?
uh, I don't know. I'm not sure. Um, I think just make sure that you keep steering your own ship. I think whenever you're using AI, just don't lie, you know, but know that you're on some choppy waters, so you need to be aware of that. I
Okay.
think, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe,
No,
for
thank you
joining.
very much. Uh,
It was interesting.
it was
So you can
interesting
end
for
it.
me too.
Take care.
You too. I don't know how to end it or leave.
We are ending this recording. Okay.